All right. Well, good afternoon or morning, depending on which part of the country that you are joining us from. My name is Les Fansler. I'm the director of our partner marketing team in North America. I am located and coming to you today from my basement in Atlanta, Georgia. We'll see how the technology goes. Murphy's Law, as we were joking beforehand, you never know what to expect in today's high use of technology. So hopefully, now that we've all been working remotely for a number of months now, everything will work out well, but you never know. But excited to be able to talk and host really today's not really webcast, although you're going to see us, but really a conversation, really our partner to partner conversation around how to authentically engage customers. I'm joined with someone really special that I've had really a pleasure being able to talk with as we've been kind of going back and forth, kind of leading up to this. But Chris Menderink from DWD Technology Group, who's joining us. And Chris, I'll turn it over to you just in a minute. But really the focus of today really is as we've been talking with few partners, and one of the things that you've shared with us in terms of things that you would like to hear more from your peers is really around this area and this topic around customer engagement and how to engage customers during this time and kind of the changes and challenges that represents. And so wanted to really kind of bring to you someone who's doing a good job at this, at least doing things well, just so that you guys can kind of get a glimpse into what they're doing, how they've adjusted, how they've adopted new things and evolved, to see if that gives you ideas of things that you might be able to incorporate and put into practice within your business. And I think Chris would be the first one to say they're by no means an expert, right? That this is a journey, a process, and so this is really just a chance for you to hear from one person in terms of the journey that they've been on, what that looks like for them, and where that what that might look like for you, and hopefully spurring some ideas. So Chris, before I turn it over to you, let me flip over here. I want to remind everybody that if you do have questions that you would like for me to ask Chris, or for us just to kind of chat about while we're on our conversation today, feel free to enter those into the questions little chat window there to the right of your screen, and on the toolbar there is a questions one and a chat one. Please use the questions one. That's the one that we will be kind of keeping an eye out for. But we have a lot of questions that we're going to really run through. And Chris, I guess maybe the first way to kind of get started really is maybe just through an introduction. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about who you are, the role that you have at DWD, and how you engage with customers from your role today.
Absolutely, and thank you for inviting me to this today. So I've been with DWD Technology Group since August 2010, so for 10 years. 15 years before that, I did operations management in retail. Actually, I had looked at Sage Solutions back then to help with our business. Ended up writing my own. I had a heavy level of what I call nerd in me that I took advantage of, and kind of ran my own business and did my own thing for those years. I ended up going back to college, getting a degree in information systems, joined DWD, like I said, in August 2010, actually as a CRM consultant. Oddly enough, my initials are CRM, so that was a running joke for a while. And moved into ERP a few years later after joining, ended up focusing on business processes, integrations, modifications. A couple years ago, I started managing our Sage 100 team, and January 1st of 2020, I was promoted to director and partner at the firm DWD. Obviously, it was a great time to start that adventure. 3 months in, we're in a worldwide pandemic, so it's kind of a running joke, kind of makes me laugh. What do you do, right?
Yeah.
So
when you start, everything falls apart, right?
Right. So you start to question, maybe I shouldn't have made that choice to accept that. But I mainly work with the larger clients that our firm works with. My background is technical in nature, business processes, really working with clients to make sure that we make efficient use of the software and really match it to their processes as possible. So that's my role at DWD. Real quick, just a little bit about me as a human, right? I've got a wife of 23 years. She is a nurse at the hospital, so I hear about COVID-related things almost every day. I have two daughters, one that's 20, she's in college studying archaeology. I have one that's 16 that started driving 2 weeks ago, so that's not scary. And then I have two exchange daughters, one from Italy and one from Belgium. So it's been interesting just to listen to them and their experiences across the pond, as some of them may say, with all of the COVID. So
Yeah.
a little
So
bit
now
about me.
now I know why you snuck into the office to be able to do this
Right,
podcast, is because you would be fighting for bandwidth with you were if you were at home. Yeah, great.
absolutely.
So you mentioned that you do a little bit that you oversee kind of the 100 business.
Mhm.
So what does that look like from a team standpoint in terms of how you guys are kind of structured today from that customer engagement standpoint?
Right. So I'll talk a little bit about DVD because my role isn't at this moment anymore just Sage 100. Okay. So we also work with Sage Intacct. We also work with Abilla MIP, Sage CRM, and some other solutions like that. So my job now has kind of been promoted into helping all teams, right, and keeping them focused. So regionally, we really focus in the Midwest, but we obviously are, like most people, we have clients all over the United States. We've got 25 employees total. We have a software team and a network team. So again, my focus is being the software team. Bob Kohlmeyer, who some of the people that are watching probably know, he really focuses on the network and is guiding me in the software side since he's been doing this for a long time. On the software side, we focus in manufacturing, not-for-profit distribution. Those are our three key areas. And then I would probably say we lean more towards manufacturing being from the Midwest. We have a lot of manufacturers that are in that auto industry, RV industry, and just different industries that support those things. So network team, we've got managed IT, virtual CIO, and a group of guys that really go out and help clients. So it's been an interesting experience with COVID for them and us, and just kind of comparing the two things that we're seeing.
Yeah. So on that note, I mean, clearly, the past, 4 or 5 months, have been just crazy in terms of anyone being able to really kind of know what they were going to expect and still will expect. So
Right.
I'm curious if you had to maybe characterize, what the impact has been on your business thus far. What's kind of like the high level kind of takeaway that you would share with partners?
So I would think that just my conversation with some other partners, we're seeing some of the same things. So the service side of our business for software, we have seen an average of about 15% increase year over year in billable work up through June, which I will be honest, did surprise us a little bit. We were expecting a slight dip because of COVID, but it appears that that dip has not come yet, right? Sales in the software side has been strong with regards to add-ons, primarily focused on solutions that are automating processes, assisting people with working remotely or with reduced staffs, right? So if we look at the Sage 100 world as an example, things like Avalara, Sage Alerts and Workflow, Sage AP automation, things that our clients would need during this time, right? Internally as a group, we've switched from Slack to Microsoft Teams, right? So it's had what our business has changed in how it communicates, right? We really felt the need that as everybody got sent home, that we need a way to walk into someone's office. Well, I mean, our Microsoft Teams has provided that. We call each other, we're talking all the time. It's actually made us, some of us, we almost think we're more efficient working from home, right? So that's the big unknown at this moment. So we've made operational changes with the change, but really from the service side of the software business, we really have still seen an increase.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So if you mentioned that you sell to manufacturing and nonprofit distribution, kind of the mainstays, of the
Mhm.
businesses that you guys are targeting. So what would you say, if you had to again kind of give just a high level kind of look at, what you've seen from a customer standpoint over this time, what would be the key takeaway that you've seen thus far?
Really, it's been industry dependent. We have seen some of our customers or our clients really grow all of a sudden. Anybody that was in the distribution area for safety products, right? Those clients all of a sudden were raising their hands because their business doubled overnight, right? And we've seen some that have spiked up significantly to start with, and then they've kind of leveled off and died down. And then other customers that are, were in the auto industry really spent a few months hurting. Um, but one of the things that, from a customer standpoint, is I think our customer base has been generally positive, and they really do see that this will end, and there will be a continuance of business, and everything will come back around. And so with that, we've seen some of our, especially our larger clients, take this time when maybe they were shut down to move projects for the fall that they wanted to do into that time frame. So in some ways, we've been up, but I think we've eaten our dinner at lunch potentially, right? So again, the next 6 months will be telling.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, so on that note of just kind of where things are today, and I'm sure everyone is kind of anxious to kind of hear your take because things are a little different depending on the different markets that you not only sell into from a vertical standpoint, but also geographically from the country, and different pockets have been opening up faster and others a little bit more slowly. But what are you seeing in the market today? Maybe kind of give me, just your take on, where we've kind of come and been from that March, April timeframe to today. Is there things that you're seeing kind of constant that stay the same? You mentioned, a customer, that saw a spike and then things have kind of plateaued. So just what are you seeing in the market just from a general high level standpoint?
Okay. So manufacturing wise, we'll start there. We're seeing, and I mean, a great example is this. I was working with a client yesterday. They're in the auto industry as part of their business. And just talking to him, and he said that they are actually getting back to pre-COVID levels of in requests. So, I mean, very positive in nature again from that. My brother-in-law works for GM in Southern Indiana, and he said that it's the same thing. And if you go out there and look at the car lots, there's just not a lot of cars out there, right? My parents tried to buy a car. They had a hard time. So I think the auto industry is starting to see a bounce back. We've gotten that reported from our clients in that regard. There's some concern depending on where the client is located, though, because much like everyone else, COVID comes into the industry or into their building, then they've got to react to that. And we've had a couple clients that kind of ramped up and then had to shut down for a week or two. And it's been really important for us to make sure we're there for them when those moments happen, right? And so we've tried to keep communication lines open, things like that, so that we're staying in front of them and with them when they have these moments. The
Yeah.
RV industry, where we are, so that's really coming back to the industry you're in, has been booming, right? I mean, everybody wants to go to a campground. Everybody all of a sudden that didn't want to live in a camper, all of a sudden wants to live in a camper, right? So all the people like me who like to go out and hike and who like to go camping and do all those things now go out there and look around and go, who are all these people and why are they in my woods, right? So from that, again, finding that right industry. Some industries definitely are succeeding. Distribution, I've seen the industry as an example. We have a client that distributes frames all over the US, can't meet demand right now, right? Big nosedive, but all of a sudden it's kind of that V that they talk about going back up. Cell phone distribution, we have a client that does that, and they are extremely busy. I believe everybody took their money that the government gave them and bought cell phones. So really it's industry dependent, and it's important that everyone looks at the industry of all their clients and their client base and make sure that they're reaching out and touching them.
Yeah, so that's a good segue, right? Because I mean, the main gist of what we wanted to kind of really kind of camp out on, in our conversation today is really around that customer engagement. So that's kind of
Right.
a good way for us. I would say maybe just to preface, your comments before I kind of turn it back to you is, I think from the conversations that I've had with partners. And they're probably the same with you because I know you guys are well networked as well. But one of the things that I hear or have heard is kind of a consistent challenge over the past few months is, is around that area of customer engagement and partners wanting to be able to really connect with customers,
Yeah,
uh, but also at the same time wanting to be sensitive to the fact of I don't want it to come across as though I'm trying to sell to them and and kind of make what is a good intention kind of leave a sour taste in their mouth. So
right.
I'm curious from your vantage point, I mean, is that a struggle that you guys kind of have been through, looked at, discussed, and how have you guys kind of responded to that?
Right. So initially, we did some things that some people would probably be like, "Oh my gosh." We actually went out and asked our consultants to reach out to their clients that they work with in the past year, 2 years, whatever, be it via email, via it for a phone call, and ask how they're doing on a human level as a person, and get to the business a little bit and just talk to them, right? Non-billable. We just want to know how you're doing, how's your business doing, what do you see in your industry? And in doing that, I mean, providing the empathy and listening, we actually have built better relationships with our clients. And on the flip side of that, it actually did end up turning into business for us unexpectedly. But the key to it, and I think, and again, I've never sold, I've never been through this sort of event in my life, but I really looked and thought, how do I buy and how do I interact with people during times like this, right? And so what I'm looking for is someone who will listen, right? They will take the time to focus on listening, be positive in nature, spend a little time getting to know me potentially. So one of the things that we did is any prospect, any call we started, we focused on the first 5 minutes, meeting, talking like a friend. Who are you? A little bit about your life, right? And really focused on that. And then we realized that these calls were non-billable, but it was a source of knowledge for that industry for us. It helped us know what was happening. And then we met together as a group every week, like we do, and we talked about our experiences for these phone calls. And, we learned a lot of information about the things going on around us that hopefully helps us on the other side when it comes to prospects.
Yeah, great. So maybe give, some examples of, the way in which you did that. Like, I mean, when you say, hey, we were there, kind of listening, or we were there, kind of calling just to kind of say, how are you doing? Give a little bit more context to, I mean, like what was the structure of that call? Was it literally just, hey, I'm Chris from DWD, just calling to check on you. How are you doing? Give folks a little bit maybe that haven't kind of jumped into that arena, what a little bit more of a feel for how that call would go.
Absolutely. So we focused on first being the person who would reach out would be the consultant that they typically would have engaged with. So it wasn't a complete stranger, right? So it would be something that there was a high percentage chance they would pick up the phone, and they did. And so we really said, let's focus on just a simple question. Hey, it's Chris, and a lot of times you're getting a pretty positive, hey, Chris, how are you, kind of thing, right? And so you just started off with that initial, hey, I just was calling to see, how the business is doing, if there's, what you guys are seeing, and just to see how you were doing. We worked together, two months ago, a couple weeks ago, whatever it is, and I thought of you the other day, and I just wanted to see how things were going. And I mean, you just kept it at a very simple level, and they would just initially at COVID, they were just, I mean, it sounds horrible. They were vomiting everything out, right? Everybody was sharing so much at that time, and it was such a positive thing. And you're just trying to consume it all and make notes and all that stuff. And it was a non-billable. We aren't selling you anything. We're not asking for anything. We just want you to know we're here, right? And on the flip side of that, that's when they realize that, they don't have to buy from us for us to reach out and check in on them. And for a lot of customers or clients, that was hugely positive, right? But we kept the conversations very simple, and I really told the team to focus on keeping these conversations 15 to 30 minutes, no more, right? We want to be a very simple engagement, simple call, and then if they want to talk more about business, schedule another call, schedule that out. Don't make it part of this call unless they really are pushing for it, right? We really want this to be a positive call.
Yeah, and I think that echoes what certainly what we have seen from our vantage point. Is really this unique event has created a window to be able to connect with people in a way that historically you haven't been able to connect with people. Like, I mean, just
Right,
even what we're doing today. I mean, you think just a few months ago, yeah, I mean, we would do webcasts, but I mean, like, just to kind of have just the video portion, it just adds a whole different element. And the things that we've seen in terms of businesses that have really responded well, have figured out, how do I just take the human element and focus on that and connect with
right,
someone, and then let things kind of go where they go, but at least letting someone know, hey, I'm here, care about you. And I mean, there's still, is we could joke in terms of some pockets of the country, things feel very much like they did back now that they did back in the March and April timeframe, right?
right,
And so I think it really is an opportunity still to connect with folks. But I'm sure that there were some folks that were listening that said, consultants, you have consultants, folks that are billable that you're having just a call for 30 minutes just to check in
right,
on someone. I would imagine that some folks are like, oh, wow, how do the economics work there? So
right.
was that a concern for you guys at all, or did you just kind of take the financial side of that away and say, hey, look, this isn't really about finances. This is really just about, just focusing on, the human side of things.
Right. For me, so when I sat down and I thought about this when this hit, I I really did take away the financial side because the way I want a business to operate in our business is to be there for the clients. And to me, this seemed like the right thing to do. Um, and so yeah, there were benefits for us, right? We learned about, like I mentioned, learned about what's going on in their markets, right? And we built a relationship stronger with our clients, right? From a financial standpoint, we all know that at some point our billings and our work will, you know, go down, right? We kind of expected it during COVID, so this was us getting ahead to maybe try to lift it. But for me, it was really a personal relationship building exercise, right? Some of our consultants, it's not their strong point, right? So I would jump on calls to try to help guide that. So for them, it was a little bit of learning and experiencing it. Um, but really, what it came down to is we went through this exercise and we ended up actually getting upgrades and add-on sales and consultant work that more than paid for the time that they spent doing that. And the fact that it was the consultant that was doing the reach out really brought it to the next level for the customer, right, or the client. Not to take away from the other side, I mean, we did do a big engagement. We used data that Sage and our ISVs helped provide us, and we really went out there and Con Skembos in our office, he does a lot of the account managing. He called out to 100 of our clients based on a propensity list that we had, and he really didn't lead off in any way, shape, or form of sales. He was just, hey, how are you doing, et cetera. But he had a purpose, and his purpose was to invite them to some webinar, right? That we really thought would be important to that customer during this time, right? Avalera was a big talking point for us because we all know that the states have been giving money out, quite a bit of money, and they're going to want that money back, right? And so we're putting that messaging out there a little bit that, hey, you need to be in front of this, so when it comes back around you're prepared, right? How do you talk better amongst your office when you got people at home, you got people in the office or in the warehouse? How do we communicate, and talking to customers about that because it's relevant to their situation, and putting them to a free webinar to learn about ideas and thoughts and stuff like that. So
Yeah, so what I'm hearing kind of out of that is, I mean, as you articulated earlier, I mean, it really wasn't about selling. And even
mm,
though the intent in your mind was still to sell at some point, you weren't selling on the initial outreach that you were doing
right,
to them. It was always the next step, right? You were just trying to move them to something else that would kind of start to create that sales engagement, but it wasn't
right,
the initial, even, talking about the webcast, it wasn't hey, I'm trying to sell you something. It's, hey, I got something I want you to attend.
Right.
Come listen if you think this is of interest to you. So it really was kind of a soft way of just getting some information in front of them. That's great. So
And from a
was it?
mark,
Yeah,
if I
go ahead.
may add on to that real quick, from the marketing side, I mean, the number one thing that we realized is that our website was a wealth of knowledge, right? From our customers that were coming in, that customers and prospects were coming to our site and they were looking at things. So we kind of took what they were looking and looked at that data and said, wow, here's the needs that we're seeing based on who's visiting the website. Early on in COVID, about week 2, our website, I mean, hits shot through the roof. Now it was harder to tell where they were coming from. A lot of people were working from home, right? So, I mean, we kind of lost that ability, but at the same time, it was really guiding our conversations that we were putting out there into the world, right? That, hey, we're seeing a lot of interest over here on things that, help people communicate in the AP department or whatever it was. We kind of put that out there and we made sure that on a marketing perspective that we were educating if people were looking at Sage AP automation and saying, hey, we need to improve that process, right? We put educational content out there and we saw our email click rate increase 10% over normal. So we really focused on not just having our consultants reach out and engage, but we also then took information from the website to help direct that engagement, right?
Yeah, that's great, and certainly very very key. Websites aren't always the easiest things to manage and keep up to date, but
Right,
certainly in today's environment where folks are wanting not always to engage with somebody, but are definitely open to learning about information. That's a great tool and resource for them
right,
to connect with you and kind of still have that sales environment in the background in terms of you're at least disseminating information, but you're not necessarily having to do it with a salesperson
right.
on the call. So I'm curious in terms of taking the consultants that you had and this was what sounded like a kind of a new process for you. So there's not necessarily a rule book for this, but what kind of did you follow in terms of how to kind of make that transition internally? I mean, it's one thing I think for one person to kind of get on board and say, hey, look, I'm very extroverted, I love this kind of thing, I love calling and just checking on folks. But it's another thing where maybe it's trying to get other employees or other people on the team to, kind of buy into that and kind of get them to catch what you're trying to do. Just curious, any insights of how you went through that process of kind of getting, what you were seeing embraced and adopted by others on the team?
Absolutely. So I've always lived this way. When in my other job, I did the same thing. To me, it's lead by example, right? So you look at your team members and you say, who's good in their personal skills, who can reach out and talk and really have that extroverted personality when it comes to interacting with our customers or clients and prospects. And those individuals, like you said, jumped right in and they were all, good to go. But there are certain ones that, aren't. And that's okay, because maybe that's just really not their job focus. But they do have clients they work with and that they know. And so I offered every time to anyone that, hey, if you want me to initiate the call, do you want to set up the call and I'll join and really get on there and um, open the door for the communication, really, and really let the consultants see how that works. And typically what I noticed was if I did that, then the consultant would actually end up taking over, right? Because there was a relationship there. The relationship may not be the same that I would have with them, but there was already a relationship that was built over time. So, they would get involved and they would end up taking over, and it wouldn't have to be Chris's show, right? It wouldn't have to be me, just talking. So it was a growth moment for some of them, I think. But it was also from a personal level, it was a very positive experience. It really did make me want to work harder for the clients, find solutions for their problems, and really it did it for every team member we had as well.
Yeah, and I would imagine, once you kind of get over that initial fear, right, of I'm not sure exactly what to say, I can't quite visualize exactly how the conversation is going to go, but once you kind of just jump in, I would imagine, and what it sounds like you're saying is that there was a level of personal satisfaction that really, and kind of energy that comes out of that
Yes.
on your team side of saying, hey, I really was able to connect with somebody, and now I'm really kind of getting back into that real helping mode
Right.
and that everyone loves to do, for the businesses that we're in. So,
Right.
so that's great. And certainly, a good example of from what you shared. But so let me shift gears a little bit because we've been
Okay.
talking a lot about customers,
Right.
and what that customer engagement looks like. I'm curious what you've seen on kind of that new business front, because when I talk with partners, that's another big piece of topic of conversation, and it ends in different spectrums. It's some folks that are, full guns ablazing and saying, hey, look, we haven't changed anything. We're still out talking and looking for new business just as we were before. You have other folks who are like, ooh, wow, I do not want to come across as being insensitive if I'm calling into someone whose business is, kind of on life support,
Right.
and kind of all in between. Curious, what are you guys seeing kind of in today's environment as it relates to new business?
Right. So on the prospecting side, I mean, I'm going to start with, I think in some ways we got lucky. Right
That
before,
always helps. That always
yeah,
helps.
it always helps. Right before all this hit, we did have an amazing 2019. At the end of it, we actually, at the beginning of this year, we actually sent a couple of our guys to the Barry Ryan Selling Through Curiosity training. That was probably the best thing we've ever done. He had some great points, and really it comes down to is the same thing that you should be doing right now with prospects, where it's listening and asking questions and being curious, right? And then practicing those skills with each other. He really he really opened that door for us going into this event, right? So we have prospects that have come in during this time, and what we've noticed is A, they're more open to conversation. B, they're more open to it being personal and open to talk about their business, especially at the beginning of this. I think you and I have talked about this some. It has changed a little, right? But we're still seeing it. Prospect last week, I mean, just same thing. Their business is exploding. They're in the food distribution, but to grocery stores, and they got on the phone and initially just introducing and talking, and I got them to loosen up and laugh a little bit, right? And it was a big moment for them. But as soon as we did that, we were able to ask any question we wanted, and they were very open to giving it to us, right? But we spent a lot of time listening, those kinds of things. We practiced reverse selling. I'm sure there are other words for it. That's what I call it. Again, I'm not a sales expert, so but we really did start using that more and more during the beginning of this, especially where we were asking, is this the right solution for you, right? We're asking in such a way that the person on the other end hopefully takes ownership of making the decision, and it becomes their idea essentially in their mind, right? So we had some prospects at the beginning of this that were in, and I mean, we get into and do the demo, and I'd say, okay, so we all know the COVID's happening. We all know it's affecting the businesses that are out there, and there's a lot of instability in this. So is this really the right time for us to continue, right? And you would get a response that would tell you exactly where they're at, right? I'm not asking for the sale. I'm not asking for them to say yes to me. I'm saying, are we really sure this is the right time that we're in? And that really did guide us as we went through that, right? So we focused on selling through curiosity. We focused on going into the demo, showing them everything they wanted, spending that extra time. And at the end of it, instead of asking for the sale, we were kind of reversing it and saying, are we sure this is the right time? When it became for marketing, so if we're going to the top of the funnel here, right? Our focus there, it was the propensity list from Sage and the ISVs. We took on tools, and we're taking on, I should say, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? Because we want to be able to get out there and be seen in LinkedIn more, because we really do feel, and I'm sure everybody else, that there's got to be a way to communicate and come together as a group online when all of our associations and all of our different things are kind of having all their events. I had a manufacturing breakfast that got canceled, right? So I'm not going to be able to attend that. And so we're looking for tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator to help us get out in front of people. Features like Bluebird that they offer, where if someone changes a job, you get notified. Well, there's going to be some job changing over, the past few months and then coming 6 to 8, 12 months. So there's a lot of potential that if you can monitor that information, that you could have a new prospect appear, right? And be able to reach out and, hey, I saw you, new job, et cetera, congratulations, right? And just do those soft touches.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, those are some great uses of technology. I'm curious, how has that kind of helped you, kind of bring and build that relationship, if through, because you described it really well in terms of what you're able to do from a customer standpoint, but you know, new prospects, folks that you don't really know so well.
Right.
How have I'm assuming maybe some of that technology has helped, but I'm kind of curious, what have you been able to do to kind of build that kind of relationship throughout the process? As I'm assuming it's some of the questions and that's just kind of facilitated, but curious if there's some other things there that really you guys have found successful in kind of building that, even though folks are remote.
Right. So one of the things is every call we do videos on, right? Because we want them to see us as a person, right? The best selling or the best thing you could do for a prospect is go to their business. Well, we can't do that, right? So we are showing ourselves in all our glory, especially during COVID. I mean, there were prospects that met my cats and my
Yeah.
dogs and my kids, right? And so the personal level of that, was highly accepted, right? Nowadays, that's changed a little bit, right? Some people, more people are starting to show up in their office and stuff like that. But again, trying to get to that personal level early on. We did spend a lot of time ahead of it researching to be able to find something about the individual we were going to talk to see if there was any commonalities, things that we could speak to. I had a prospect that right at Memorial Day, about 2 or 3 o'clock on that Friday, got the information, looked him up, looked online, learned about his business real quick, learned about kind of what he had done, and I called him, and I think I shocked him a little bit. I introduced myself and said, "Hey, I'm calling related to this." I said, "But really, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday before this holiday weekend." And I said, "More importantly to me as a person is that I just want to thank you for your service, because I knew he was in the service and the business that he ran, it was related to that, right?" And I said, I don't want to sell you anything. I don't want to even have that conversation right now. I just really want to thank you. My father was in the service as well, and I really appreciate everything you did. Would you like to set up a call next week to actually talk about business? And I think it surprised him because the call was probably about 10 minutes. And he told me at the end that the other one that called, he didn't schedule an appointment. He goes, because it was a sales pitch right from the start. And I found that interesting, right? And so any prospect that we're calling, we're trying to do a little more research ahead of time to learn more about the person, because it seems like right now, selling is more personal than it ever has been.
Hmm. Yeah, fascinating, right? So you say more personal, but yet we're not personal, right? In terms of
Right,
distance and being able
right,
to get close to someone. So being able to use other things to kind of rise above that. I
right,
love that great example. I'm curious, what are you seeing just in terms of just briefly in terms of what are people looking for? What's driving things from a new business standpoint? Today, are people just kind of still moving through the process and then kind of just stop because, hey, I just not really ready to move forward? Are people it's hard for folks to pull the trigger, or, are
right.
we just, you're not seeing as many people really engaging? Just curious from your perspective.
So our sales process has changed. We were a big proponent of generally the BANT idea, right? Budget, authority, need, timeline, right? Well, we kind of are ANT now. We're ants. We dropped the B, right? Because really, we don't think anyone really is coming at us with some large budget, right? So we're really focusing on does this person have the authority, the need, and what's their timeline, right? So they come in, we're kind of finding that out. But more importantly, we're meeting the client or the prospect where they're at in the sales process, right? We have done some where we have literally had an introduction call and gone straight to demo the next time. And we blend the demo with the needs assessment together, right? Because the leads, there was a lot of what I call tire kickers, right? But people that would go out there and research on their own, which we're all seeing people do. They're coming to us much more intelligent about their solution and what they want. And so really our focus, and it's not COVID that changed this. We actually have been doing this for probably the last 6 to 8 months. We've changed this to really focus on listening to them and seeing where they're at and meeting them there, right?
Mm,
And so that's the biggest thing. I had one that it was manufacturing oriented, and so we had an introduction call, and he was just rush, rush, rush. It felt like, and I said, listen, we can go straight to demo and I'll learn more about your business there. And he was like, really? I said, yes. So I went online and I researched a little bit about what they do. They make paddle boats that are big ducks and swans. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen, probably. But I went through and set up the duck and swan. I made it so he could build them. I had pictures from his website. I started the presentation. I thought, hey, what would I want to do if I buy a paddle boat, right? And walked him through it. And I mean, he was very impressed, right? That I took that time to research and spent a little time using little things like the picture of the paddle boat he makes and stuff like that. And it a very successful engagement. So,
yeah. So once again, what I hear is, that personability, right? Of figuring out small ways to kind of make it, feel personal to
right.
somebody. And I'm sure a lot of folks, antennas went off when you're saying, what? You went from, that to a demo all at once. I'm sure folks were like, how do I find those opportunities?
Right.
Those what's what everybody wants. Let's skip the small talk and get right down to the nuts and bolts.
Right.
That's great. Well, hey, listen, we're kind of getting towards the end of our time, and this has been a fantastic conversation. It's amazing how quickly time flies.
Yeah.
I got a ton more questions that I could throw at you. Maybe just a couple here, just to kind of round it out. If someone, if partners haven't maybe been as proactive, in engaging with customers, or if they've been more concerned about how, that might come across or how they might be perceived. What kind of advice would you give to them, just as kind of some closing thoughts here?
My advice is don't pick up the phone and make the first phone call. Um, you'll learn a lot in that first one. Um, like I said, we kept ours simple and we still do. I mean, there are some that I have called even a couple weeks ago just to check in. Um, it, you have to pick up and try it, right? And if you're positive and you're engaging and you bring energy to the conversation, right? You want the person on the other end of the line to hang up and smile when you're done talking to them, right? And so that's ultimately your goal, right? Is I'm going to call into a customer that I haven't probably spoken to in probably 8 months to a year easily, right? But I know that when I get them on the phone, my goal will be to make them smile, make them laugh, and just see how their business is doing and not really push anything and let them guide the conversation. And I think to myself, that's 15 minutes of my time, 15 to 30, right? And we've all got hundreds of clients to work through, right? So you got to be smart about how you go about this. Look at the industry they're in. If they're in an industry that is doing okay, then it's worth the time. And so using the data points that we have, we really are going to continue that, and we're going to pick up that phone and try it. And I would recommend that, right? Don't be scared. The only way to really know what's going to happen is to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Sometimes you can be your own worst enemy, right? Of kind of
Yeah,
building up something that isn't really there, and
right,
and there's just, there's some approach things as well. I mean, there's some valid things that if you don't, kind of if you make it seem like it's about you, then that might come
right,
across. But what you're saying is, hey, if you really just kind of take you out of it and to say, hey, I'm going to make this call about the customer,
right,
then you can. It should come across much easier, and the customer will appreciate, the emphasis being on them.
right.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so curious, you made it to sound like, wow, you guys got this down to a science. So just so that everyone doesn't walk away and think like, hey, we're kind of done. Curious if there's anything that you're looking at as kind of like the next step in this iterative process,
Yep,
on your end, and what are you trying to focus on next, as it relates to kind of the customer engagement piece?
right. So our focus right now is getting better at ROI, because if we think about during this time, we used a lot of empathy and a lot of education and a lot of the other tools to really keep them engaged with us, right? We knew they may not be buying now. That's great. But now it's going to be on us to find the ROI. How long does it take someone to do something? How much money is that, worth to the customer? ROI is going to be in every conversation we have over the next year because somebody's got to pitch it to someone, right? And if I'm a business owner, why would I do this? Why would I change solutions? Why would I spend this money, right? Give me a reason, right? So you got to be able to quantify how that business process improved. And so we're going to be working with our two sales team members to have that conversation, the ROI conversation. I'm going to attend training for that. That is not my strength. I do it sometimes by nature, but it's not something I go to first. I'm more of the empathetic reverse selling. That is my way I've always lived, right? So I need to get better with that. And so we are going to focus on that. We're going to focus on data more. So again, letting the website tell us what people are looking at our client base, what industries they're in, SIC codes, using all this information to really focus our attention in the right places, right? And then internal processes. We got to make sure that we are responding to clients efficiently to their requests, and the same with prospects, and make sure that we aren't letting things drop through cracks, right? So if we start slowing down, which very well may, as I said earlier, we ate our dinner at lunch, so we may see some of that slowdown, and I want to see a focus on our internal systems because there's going to be an upside. People are going to come back and they're going to be buying, right? And I believe, much like the recession back in 08, 09, there was an upside to this and it was big, right? So it's imperative that we get ready for that, get our marketing message correct, and our consultants' knowledge aligned to the needs at that time, be it cloud, be it business process, be it communication, right? We need to focus on that in the coming few months.
Yeah, great. Well, so I love that. Let me just kind of pull up a poll question here for folks, just so we kind of start to wrap up here. One of the things that I think you so aptly described is it's about planting seeds. Like don't waste or miss this opportunity
Right.
to be dropping seeds because they will grow. People love to buy and work with people that they trust and that they believe will help them. And this is a great window of being able to really establish that personal connection with folks that will come back in some form or fashion. So think it's a great thing there. The other thing, just to iterate, you mentioned selling through curiosity. One of the things that we actually have coming up here in a few weeks is going to be with Barry Ryan and
Right.
from Selling Curiosity. Now, we're not going to do a Selling Through Curiosity session, but what we are going to do is have him on just to kind of talk through what is it like to adjust and sell in a virtual selling environment and get his thoughts and perspectives on things that that as businesses we all need to make money and we want to continue to make sure we're stepping out and providing value, but what are the kind of the things that we need to know? And you alluded to a few of those, but we'll get his perspective. Nancy Texera will be back and she'll host that portion, but want to encourage everyone to go and be able to register for that. That is out on the partner hub so that you can go and access that.
I cannot stress enough how great he is at speaking about what he speaks. So I would highly recommend attending that. I would recommend considering having anybody that you have that does sales or even consultants that kind of bridge that weird gap. Make sure they attend it because he's a great speaker, much better than me. I'm just a guy. I don't do this for a living. So a great speaker and some great content.
Yeah, great. Well, so kind of one last thing, and then we'll finally officially wrap here. So, this is an ongoing series that we're looking to have. As if you've heard Nancy mention in the past, or if you attended the previous one that we did, this is really a partner-to-partner webcast, and we want it to be a series, and we want it to be something that as partners. You guys help control and drive, what we talk about. So if there's things that you know of from a topic standpoint that you would like to see us cover, We want to know if there's things that you think you're doing especially well, and you want to say, hey, look, I think I have something that would be great for other partners to hear, and you're willing to share that back with folks. We want to know that too, because we want this to be reflective of the Sage partner community. So the more that we know what you're interested in, and topics, and who's got great things that you're trying to do, we try to do our best to kind of get out and understand who's doing what. But we don't want we don't want that to stop if we haven't reached out to you, for you to say, hey, look, I want to raise my hand, and make sure that you guys are addressing things that are pertinent and relevant for your business. All right, so Chris, with that said, I mean, we've come to the top of our time, so I can't thank you enough. I mean, like I said, this time has flown by. I hope it's been extremely valuable for those partners that have been listening in and joining with us in our conversation as we kind of gone back and forth. There's probably more that we could have dove into and discussed more. Folks are still welcome to reach out to you if they have a
Absolutely.
question. I'm sure you'd be happy to address them, or take that offline. But I wanted to say thank you for your time, Chris, and kind of sharing your perspectives, your insights, the things that you guys have done to really kind of make the most out of what's been a very unpredictable time. And it sounds like you guys have done a great job of laying a good foundation, and even starting to reap some of the rewards of that. But I think if nothing else, you guys have really used this as an opportunity to get closer to your customers. And I think that's something that we can all kind of take away from, to say, all right, what are the things that I can begin doing to continue to push in that, even if someone's already kind of going to the level that you are, kind of continuing to hear those things, to say, hey, let's keep going. All right, so with that, I want to thank everyone for joining. I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. We'll look forward to connecting back with you here in a couple of weeks, where we hit the next one, where we talk about virtual selling. All right, you guys take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.